highly beneficial because, again, if you do a lot of endurance exercise and if it's very straining and you produce a lot of reactive oxygen species, then of course this can cause cell damage or make you look older or even DNA damage. So you need to keep your antioxidant intake substantially high. Now, I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with vitamin B12, cobalamin, which is known to improve your appetite if you use an injectable form. But in this video, we're just going to discuss the over-the-counter supplements. Some of the food sources are quite rich in vitamin B12, such as sardines, salmon, tuna, cod, lamb, scallops, shrimp, beef liver specifically, and yogurt. So all of those, if you eat those on a daily basis, you should be able to get 2.4 micrograms of vitamin B12 at least as the daily recommended intake. But if you want to go higher, there's supplements for that in the form of cyanocobalamin, which is a synthetic version of vitamin B12. This form is not found in nature, but it's the most stable and cost-effective compared to natural methylcobalamin, which is found in the food sources I just discussed. If you do this in combination with a B100 complex containing 100 micrograms cyanocobalamin and whatever methylcobalamin you get from your diet, that's more than enough for adequate energy metabolism, where vitamin B12 is included in the metabolism of carbohydrates, fats, and protein, converting them into usable energy in the form of ATP. And again, vitamin B12, like vitamin B9, is necessary for the production and maturation of red blood cells. And keep in mind that vitamin B12 is also involved in the maintenance of the central nervous system, including the production of myelin and protective sheath around the nerves. Of course, optimized neurological function is very important for, let's say, hand-eye coordination, if that's part of the endurance sport, and otherwise total body awareness, allowing you to perform at peak levels throughout the entire moment that you need optimized endurance. Very, very important. So I would say that vitamin B9 and B12 supplementation is already very beneficial to improve your overall oxygen carrying capacity and deal with recovery and overall neurological function, just from those two alone. Then what you also have to look into is iron intake. Now, of course, iron is the main component of hemoglobin within the red blood cells, and the iron actually helps with the oxygen that the red blood cells transport through your blood. So without iron, you will not be, delivering oxygen and removing carbon dioxide efficiently. Again, iron supplementation, I feel it's not really necessary. If you eat, the regular foods that are heavy or containing a lot of heme iron, for example, beef liver, bone marrow, mackerel, sardines, chia seeds, flaxseed, albeit that's non-heme iron, as well as lentils, spinach, sesame seeds, olives, and most beans. That's not heme iron. But if you get heme iron from beef and other animal meat sources, your iron absorption, especially if you combine that with vitamin C, is very, very good, and you don't need to go the supplemental route. If you do want to go the supplemental route, I believe that iron ferrous bisglycinate chelate or ferrogel has the highest bioavailability of all iron supplements out there, and also has the least effect on your gastrointestinal tract and isn't known to cause constipation. This is a side effect of iron supplements. So if you go with the ferrogel formula, there's a less likelihood that you get constipated. And otherwise, you can get the desiccated beef liver tablets, which is very old school, but it still works. And that contains a decent amount of heme iron. And it's probably the only supplement out there that actually contains heme iron. So if you don't want to go with beef liver or actual beef, then maybe desiccated beef liver tablets is the way to go to increase your overall iron intake. Now, iron is also involved in the production of ATP to a certain extent. So that's a huge bonus, but it's mostly there to carry oxygen or bind oxygen to the hemoglobin within the red blood cells and deliver that to metabolically active tissues so they can help with ATP synthesis. Right. That's the iron. Vitamin C is also very important. Now, I would say that, for all of its benefits, the antioxidant benefits and, its potent effect on collagen synthesis, I would not go towards the bottom of the recommended intake of, let's say, 90 milligrams vitamin C. That's way too low. I would say anywhere between 2,000 to 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C per day. Highly beneficial. Now, vitamin C is not really known to have a direct effect on overall endurance and energy levels and improved stamina. But again, it mostly helps with iron absorption, particularly non-heme iron, which is found in plant sources. So if you supplement with vitamin C alongside your iron-rich foods, you can ensure that you absorb all of the iron that you're consuming over the day. And again, iron supplementation might not be required at all. And all of the beneficial effects regarding its antioxidant properties or its effect on collagen synthesis, highly beneficial. Because again, if you do a lot of endurance exercise, and if it's very straining, and you produce a lot of reactive oxygen species, then of course this can cause cell damage or make you look older, or even DNA damage. So you need to keep your antioxidant intake substantially high, because whether you train for endurance or for strength or for hypertrophy or just any kinds of physical labor in general, antioxidants need to be in place. And I don't care what the literature says that it blunts the post-exercise stress response. That's just a very small part of the picture. You want to look youthful later on. You want to have all the benefits of antioxidants systemically throughout the day. And if you care about a little bit of post-exercise response, you're probably just not training hard enough. Watch the mitochondrial support stack. I go over all of the antioxidants which are highly beneficial if you want to improve your overall endurance and increase your mitochondrial function, and thus increase your overall ATP production. Right? This is basically a follow-up to the mitochondrial support stack. So watch that video when we're done with this one. If you haven't watched it already, there I go into a lot more depth when it comes to these antioxidants. So vitamin C, a no-brainer, high dosages up to 5,000 milligrams per day. And otherwise, well, vitamin C rich foods includes papaya, bell peppers, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, strawberry, pineapple, oranges, cantaloupe, and cauliflower, which are also quite rich in vitamin B9. An adequate copper intake, which is also an essential trace mineral, is very important for overall synthesis of hemoglobin containing the iron. So you need to have adequate amounts of copper in your diet. Now, most people, based on all the diets that I've written in the past, usually you get about 1 to 2 milligrams from dietary sources. And otherwise, most of the, over-the-counter general multivitamins contain 1 to 2 milligrams of copper. So you probably got that covered. You don't need to start injecting GHK copper just to get your copper intake up. Right? You get it from food or a general multivitamin. Keep in mind that copper just basically helps with iron metabolism, where it contributes to its absorption, transport, and utilization of iron, ultimately resulting in hemoglobin, right? Increasing the oxygen carrying capacity of the red blood cells. So copper contributes indirectly, just like vitamin C contributes indirectly. There's a fun fact here, because copper deficiency might impair iron metabolism, and iron deficiency resulting in low iron content within the hemoglobin. But for individuals who are on performance-enhancing drugs and they supplement with zinc heavily, so if you do that testosterone boosting protocol, which I mentioned in the start of the video, with a decent amount of zinc, you might induce copper deficiency, because zinc and copper utilize the same transporters and enzymes. So if you go on a high dose of zinc, you need to supplement copper in. Again, 2 to 5 milligrams is more than enough. But you see in these cases where you get copper deficient, that iron intake shoots up substantially high. And it, again, could be in combination with high vitamin C intake. So you really need to dial this in. If you go with high vitamin C, high zinc, and a decent amount of iron in your diet, you also need to make sure that your copper intake is sufficient to facilitate everything and remain everything in a balance, because otherwise you have very high hematocrit, very high red blood cells, and also very high serum iron levels, inducing all kinds of medical conditions, especially in the liver. So keep that in mind. Don't overdo it. You don't need to megadose all of these micronutrients on top of your diet. Figure out what you get from your diet, and then if needed, you supplement on top. Copper-rich foods includes beef liver, again, sesame seeds, cashew nuts, mushrooms, sunflower seeds, most beans, as well as lentils and walnuts. Oh, and it's also important to mention that copper is a cofactor in various antioxidant enzymes in the body, including superoxide dismutase, abbreviated to SOD. These enzymes help to protect against oxidative stress induced by intense endurance exercise. So again, copper supplementation, or at least adequate intake, a no-brainer. This kind of covers the overall oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. Again, there's a lot of pharmaceutical aids who can take that further, or hyperbaric chambers who can really improve that. But this is the foundation. These micronutrients play a part in overall red blood cell production and its overall oxygen carrying capacity. So without these, it doesn't matter how much PEDs you take, it's not going to be optimal. Keep that in mind.